What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about the messy relationship between the 3DS and Nintendo Switch. Now the reason I'm digging into this today is that we've recently gotten some statements from one of the main people over at Nintendo that they want to create some sort of successor to the 3DS. A tiny handheld that's supposed to follow that up in some capacity. And a lot of people, myself included, are a little bit shocked to hear this because, well, this thing, to a lot of us, is a handheld. This is a giant fancy Game Boy that plays open world games, has good indies, and all sorts of giant great sequels we've always wanted. But here's the thing, Nintendo themselves do not consider the Switch a handheld. It has handheld capabilities, but to them, this is a home console. That's specifically what Reggie Fils-Aimé, the president of Nintendo of America, has said. It is a home console that you can take on the go. Now, I feel like this messaging very much will change, and I think it will change within the next year or so. So, there's something going on within Nintendo, which is that they know that the success of the 3DS is because it was just so cheap and focused on portability. It was something that any kid or any adult could pick up and get a ton of games for it, all for less than $60 a game. It basically managed to be this, I don't want to say budget experience, but a cheaper way to have big, awesome games in your pockets. Now, the reason I know that Nintendo is so obsessed with the 3DS and they can't seem to just forget about it and move on and just dedicate themselves to the Switch is that they've made so many billions of dollars off it. As of now, they have sold an estimated 36 million 3DSs. Now that's a shockingly large number, but there's actually a second part of that that is even more insane, which is the fact that they have sold almost 400 million 3DS games. Yes, you heard me correctly. That means that they, on average, have managed to get people who buy a 3DS to get about 9.5 games per person. Those numbers are a record-setting attach rate. You're basically making it where by people who buy the games, the people who buy the 3DS can't help but keep buying the games because they just keep churning out amazing stuff you can't help but buy. Now, I feel like they're really beginning to replicate that success when it comes to the Nintendo Switch. This thing is just chock full of stuff that's not just ports of big epic games, it's also managing to have all sorts of tinier custom-made experiences, particularly for this device. So I feel like Nintendo needs to innovate on the Switch itself. We realize at this point they're finally phasing out the 3DS, but what is the next chapter? Many people seem to believe that we're going to be getting some sort of Nintendo Switch Pro, a bigger dock that manages to boost frame rates and graphical capabilities of this system. Personally, I do not believe that in the slightest. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like Nintendo really even cares about graphics in any capacity. They want stuff to have cool art and run decently, but they don't seem like they're too concerned about stuff being lower resolution. But there is definitely a big camp now of people who wanted to make it where when they take their Switch home and plug into the dock, games like Wolfenstein are actually comparable to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One counterparts. The reason I don't believe that this is going to happen is that I feel like Nintendo more and more is realizing that there is a set demographic of people who only want the Switch to be handheld. They like the idea of having it as a console, but they never really use it as that. It is just to them a really big freaking Game Boy that goes in a carrying case. So I think that they actually need to lean into that. This is my advice to Nintendo, and something I very fully believe is going to happen is I think we're going to see a Nintendo Switch Mini, and I think it'll probably be revealed in the next year, maybe even in the next 8 months. Now, the reason I say Nintendo Switch Mini is that I think that Nintendo, more than anything, wants people to be picking up the Nintendo Switch. More people per household. Right now, almost everybody I know has a Nintendo Switch, but it's usually just one person buying one for their entire house. Something that they're going to set in the living room and play Mario Kart during parties. They're not really too much about the on-the-go aspect, but Nintendo has already stated in interviews that the idea behind the Switch is to make it where every family, which is their words, is going to have multiple units. More sales of the console to get more sales of the games. Very much trying to walk in the footsteps of their previous handhelds, the Game Boy and the 3DS. So I think that the key to doing that is actually a much smaller and much cheaper system. Right now, this is still $300. We've got no price drop whatsoever with this device, and honestly, it doesn't really need it. It's still selling exceptionally well, but I think that if they want to try and break through that final barrier and make this a console that has multi-adoption, the key is going to be reducing the size and reducing the price. Now, the way I think this is going to happen is I think we're going to be seeing a new version come out that is going to have fully attached Joy-Cons. They will not be detachable, and it's probably going to be about half as big. I think it'll be about the size of the screen here will be the total size of the console itself. I think maybe even smaller than that, maybe literally just this big. Now, the reason I think that's so important is because they need to cut cost. The whole thing when it comes to the Nintendo Switch is that it's good stuff with good games, but it's still a little bit expensive to an average consumer. A lot of people I still talk to this day are very much in love with their PS4 or their Xbox One, and they're thinking about the Switch, but they say, oh, I just need a small price drop, $250 or $200. That's when I'll jump on. So you can finally get those people, the late adopters, on board by creating a budget version. I think that the Nintendo Switch Mini will not have a dock. It'll simply be a charger cable and the tiny device itself. The games will be cross-compatible though, which means that if you're somebody like me who loves gaming on the go, what I'll probably end up doing is, since we are about to get cloud saves, I'll probably be playing games on my Nintendo Switch, put the cloud saves up there into the sky, and then download them on my Switch Mini. That way I can keep playing in a more on-the-go fashion, a much more pocket portable style experience. The Nintendo Switch is fantastic, and I do take it to conventions, but I do think that it's a little bit too big to just take on the train. If I take something this big on the train, I've been robbed at gunpoint while riding the public transit here in Dallas. So I feel like if I have a huge thing like this, someone's gonna walk up, punch me in my teeth, and steal this thing. They're not just gonna let me sit there in peace going, doop-doop-doop-doop, Wolfenstein and Doom is so great. But if I have a smaller thing that's less noticeable and a lot cheaper, I'm going to be a lot more willing to take that all over the place. It's going to be my constant companion because I know that it's not just portable, it's a lot easier to access. But I still think that Nintendo is going to do something very, very big and very, very soon. Throughout the rest of this year, I fully believe that we're just going to see the dawn of tons of bundles. I think that we're going to start to see way more pack-in games around October, November, December for the Nintendo Switch, packing in everything from Mario Kart to Mario Odyssey, all to try and get more people to adopt this final version of the original Switch before we start to see the Switch Mini. We are still going to see the typical Switch, but I think that they're trying to diversify the product because they're definitely at a point where the people who want a Switch and are hardcore gamers that have a job that pays enough to get it, they already have this. The only way to branch out at this point is to try and reach into the demographics that are a little bit cheaper, a little bit more reserved, or people who have just been holding off until they can get something to completely replace the needs of their 3DS. But these have just been my off-the-cuff thoughts about the Nintendo Switch, the Nintendo 3DS, and a possible successor to one of the best-selling handhelds ever. What do you think about it? Do you think my theory about seeing a Nintendo Switch Mini that is a more budget version of the system coming soon, do you believe that's possible, or am I just completely delusional? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Now, before you ask, because people always ask in the comment section, what are you playing? What are you playing? This is a Halo the Master Chief Collection. This is the HD remake of the original Halo, which is still my favorite game. So, look at that. I can switch the graphics instantly. I love the original crappy graphics the most. But either way, hopefully everything goes well and we get a Nintendo Switch Mini like that. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.